The twin suns of Zalrith had burned low for weeks, leaving the sky a bruised purple that pressed uneasily on the horizon. High Priestess Melara stood atop the ancient observation tower, her sleek cerulean robes catching the last rays of dying light. Around her, the city's grand spires glowed faintly with crystal-powered lamps, but the warmth they offered felt hollow against the growing chill of despair. Below, the streets thrummed with anxious footfalls as citizens moved in, hushed. Clusters sharing fearful whispers about the relentless insectoid armada that had driven them from world to world. Melara closed her eyes and drew a deep breath, tasting the metallic temps of panic on the air, in the heart of the city. Warriors readied their energy spears and shield generators. Captain Valis, a broad-shouldered veteran with silver-streaked mandibles, inspected line after line of armor-clad soldiers. Each carried the weight of a dying people on their backs, their hearts heavy but stubborn. Valis tapped his staff against the polished floor and said, "We hold the walls tonight, for Zalrith, and for every soul who still believes." His voice echoed through the grand hall, and though fear flickered in the soldiers' eyes, they straightened their backs and nodded. Hope, fragile as a fledgling hatchling, fluttered for a moment in their chests, far beneath the citadel. In the hidden catacombs, Melara prepared the Beacon of Otherworlds for its final activation. The beacon was a towering construct of interlaced metal and crystalline glass, carved with glyphs that pulsed with dormant power. Legends said it could reach across the void and summon legendary champions from distant worlds. To most, the tale was a myth, a comforting bedtime story told to children. But tonight, myth was all Zalrith had left. Melara's breath caught as she traced her claw along the glyph of the first summoning. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "The ancient invocation," her words resonating in the silent chamber like a prayer. Above ground, storms of phosphorescent insects swarmed on the horizon, blotting out stars and eclipsing the twin suns' glow. There were no trumpets to herald their arrival. The distant hum of wings and the steady rumble of massed hooves. It grew louder with each passing moment, a living tide crawling across the world. Panic spread through the city like wildfire. Mothers clutched children, elders leaned on each other for strength, and even the bravest warriors bit their lips as dread settled in their bellies. Melara felt her own courage waver, but she straightened her spine and lifted her chin, determined to see the ritual through. Back in the beacon chamber, the glyphs flared with brilliant light, illuminating Melara's sharp features and the smooth stone walls. She chanted the final phrase, and a shockwave of energy rippled outward. The ground shuddered beneath her feet, and a column of white-blue light shot skyward, carving a path through clouds and darkness. The hum of the approaching swarm faltered, as if paused in wonder. At that moment of hushed suspense, a single star blinked where none had shone before. Then another. A small fleet of distant vessels appeared, coalescing from the light like ghosts. Emerging from a dream, on the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Jana Torres adjusted her visor and stared at the data readouts. The Resolute had been on routine patrol at the edge of human space when the beacon signal reached them, a signal unlike any recorded in Earth's archives. It pulsed with an alien frequency, but carried an unmistakable pattern, a plea for help. Torres had argued against the risk, citing protocols and fuel limitations. But when the light flared in her viewport, she knew she could not turn away. She gave the order, "Prepare for immediate warp jump." We answered their call. Her crew, equally curious and cautious, moved to their stations with a mixture of excitement and apprehension as the Resolute's engines flared to life. The column of light on Zalrith's world brightened, reflecting in the wide eyes of those who watched from below. Soldiers raised their weapons in salute, children pointed with open mouths, and Melara bowed her head in reverent gratitude. For a moment, fear gave way to wonder. Across the gulf of space, two very different peoples prepared to meet. One was on the brink of extinction, the other had crossed the stars at the beckoning of a legend. Neither knew what would come next, but both felt the stirrings of a fragile hope born in the dying light of Zalrith and carried on the wings of humanity. Asterisk the air above Zel. Reth's last great plane shimmered with energy as the Resolute phased into real space. Commander Jana Torres stood on the bridge, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and wonder. Outside the wide viewport, the violet sky rippled like water disturbed by a throne stone. Below, the crystal towers-inspired battlements of the city greeted the human ship with silent awe. Torres swallowed and gave a soft command. Open landing bay. Lower the field barriers. In the ship's main hangar, Engineer Ravi Patel and Lieutenant Leela Huang checked their powered exosuits. Each suit gleamed with Earth's emblem, blue circle encasing a silver star. Patel's hands trembled as he fastened his helmet strap. His mind raced. Had the beacon carried any warnings? Could the humans be walking into a trap? But his doubts settled when he remembered why they had come. Hope. Leela placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "We're here to help," she said simply. He nodded and squared his shoulders. Moments later, the hangar doors hissed open. A pale blue light washed over the uneven ground. Dust rose in soft clouds as the first human foot touched alien soil. Torres led her team down the ramp. She felt a strange thrill, the same sensation that soldiers felt when entering the unknown. Behind her, Patel set up a portable scanner while Huang activated her stealth camouflage. They formed a tight group, weapons at the ready but lowered, signaling peace. Across the field, High Priestess Malara watched the human descent. The column of summoning light had faded, leaving only soft wisps of energy that curled toward the sky. Now, 5 human figures moved toward her city gates, small and fragile, next to Zalrith hulking statues. Yet their calm and confident steps spoke of courage. Malara's antennas twitched in curiosity and relief. She motioned to Captain Vallis, who strode forward with a phalanx of Zalrith guards. Torres stepped onto the cracked stone path leading to the gates. The ground felt springy beneath her boots, alive with the world's energy. She raised her hands in a universal gesture of peace. Vallis stopped 10 meters away, his lanky frame towering above her. His 4 eyes steadied her face through reflective crystal goggles. Both froze in mutual appraisal around them. The city held its breath. A low hum began in the courtyard as expectant citizens gathered behind the gate's walls. Children peered through arrow slits, elders leaned on walking sticks, and warriors gripped their weapons but held them at rest. The silence was heavy until Malara stepped forward, her robes swirling. She lifted her voice in the guttural musical tones of Zalrith's speech. Patel's translator bracelet chirped softly and repeated her words in broken English. "We honor your arrival, strangers from beyond the stars." Torres let out a breath she had not realized she held. She lowered her helmet's visor and replied, "In measured tones, we answer your call. Humans come as friends." The words felt awkward on her tongue, but the giant crowd seemed to understand. A ripple of hopeful murmurs swept through the onlookers. Torres gestured to her team, and Patel placed the scanner on the ground. It beeped, mapping local life signs confirming neither side hid traps, but also revealing signs of illness and exhaustion among the defenders. Malara's mandibles clicked softly, a Zalrith sign of cautious approval. She beckoned Torres to follow her to the Hall of Council, a grand chamber carved into living rock. The walls glowed gently with embedded crystals that tracked the day's waning light. Guards parted to let the delegation pass. Inside, the hall's ceiling arched like a star-fallen flower, and runes danced along the walls in soft luminescence. Torres felt the weight of destiny pressing on her shoulders. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, seated on crystalline thrones. The council elders regarded the humans. Their elder voices spoke in ancient and formal tones. Patel interpreted through his comlink as best he could, each phrase careful and respectful. Torres described Earth's history of survival, how humans had faced extinction threats of their own and risen again. She spoke of unity, of courage born in crisis. She glanced at Malara. The High Priestess's multifaceted eyes glistened with sympathy and relief. An elder tapped a slender claw on the armrest and addressed Torres. Patel's voice crackled in her ear. "If you can turn the tide of war, we will follow your lead. But our people are wounded and our magic grows weak. Can humans truly stand against the swarm?" Torres's chest tightened. She thought of her crew, of the technology they bore, and of the will that had carried them across space. "We will fight with you," she answered firmly. "We will train your warriors and share our weapons. Together, we can reclaim your world." A hush fell over the chamber. Then Malara rose and stepped beside Torres. With a sweep of her hand, she declared in gentle tones, "Then we begin." The crystalline runes on the walls pulsed in response. Bathing the hall in a soft blue glow, Zalrith and humans exchanged determined glances. In that moment, two species so different in form and culture promised to stand as one. Beyond the hall's defenses, the insectoid armada's distant hum grew louder. But inside, a new alliance had been forged. As the meeting closed, Torres and her team followed. Torres stood atop a jagged outcrop overlooking the shattered plains beyond the city walls. The night sky glowed with pale starlight, but the distant horizon pulsed with a living swarm of insectoid ships. Their bioluminescent carapaces formed, shifting patterns like toxic fireworks. Below, Zalrith warriors clustered in nervous groups, their energy shields humming softly. Torres felt a knot tighten in her chest as she watched the aliens approach. Ow. She straightened her shoulders and tapped her comlink. "Positions," she ordered. Each human and Zalrith soldier snapped to alert posture. Fingers looping weapons and shields clicking into place, Captain Vallis strode up beside Torres, his four eyes reflecting the glow of the swarm. "They come fast," he said in halting, English voice low. Torres nodded. "We know their tactics," she replied. "They overwhelm with numbers, then break defenses from within. But we have a new strategy." She tapped a holopad, displaying a map of energy mines and ambush points. Vallis studied it carefully, his mandibles brushing a hushed click. Around them, engineers and mages worked side by side, weaving Zalrith elemental runes into human mine casings. Sparks flew as spells fused with circuitry, each new device a symbol of unity. The first waves of insectoid drones descended in spirals above the fields. They fell like rain, each impact stirring dust and carving cratered holes. Torres swallowed hard as she felt the ground tremble. She raised her plasma carbine and called out, "Hold the line." On cue, Zalrith archers unleashed arcs of energy bolts from behind the safety of shield walls. Humans knelt behind portable barricades and returned precise fire. The air filled with the staccato snap of rifles and the resonant hum of alien bolts. For a moment, the two armies fought in silence, broken only by the rhythm of battle, a shared heartbeat in the chaos. A massive drone, larger than any they had seen before, swept low across the battlefield. Its mandibles snapped shut on a shield generator, tearing it free and crushing it like a twig. The generator flared and exploded, sending shockwaves through the human line. A soldier went down screaming, and nearby Zalrith warriors froze in shock. Torres sprang forward, ordering a medevac squad to retrieve the wounded. Vallis raised his staff and channeled a shockwave that knocked smaller drones off balance. As dust settled, humans pressed forward to flank the heavy drone, each strike chipping away at its armored shell. In the thick of the fight, Engineer Patel darted between craters, carrying spare ammo cells and medical packs. He stumbled over a broken energy coil and fell, skinning his palms on sharp rocks. A Zalrith archer named Sela lunged, catching him by the shoulder with surprising gentleness. Patel looked up to see her four eyes filled with concern. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice crackling through the translator. Patel managed. Arai grinned. "Just my pride," he said. Scylla helped him up, and they shared a moment of quiet amid the roar of battle. Patel realized then that fear could be eased by one caring gesture. Back at the command post, Lila Huang monitored live feeds of the skirmish. She saw the massive drone threatening the left flank and keyed her Kumare. "There." Breaking through near the eastern ridge, she warned. Torres acknowledged and shifted her forces, leading a small team to reinforce the breach. They arrived just in time to see the drone's mandibles clamp shut on a Zalrith warrior's armor. Torres fired point blank, vaporizing the creature's joint. The drone screeched and released its victim, whose leg was caught in shattered metal. Without hesitation, Torres picked up the wounded soldier and carried her to safety. When the dust finally cleared, the battlefield lay strewn with broken carapaces and smoking craters. But the Allied line held. Zalrith and human survivors cheered in raw relief, voices hoarse but triumphant. Malara appeared on a raised dais, her cerulean robes stained with dust. She lifted her voice in a haunting chant that resonated through every warrior's soul. Around her, the crystal spires glowed brighter, as if reflecting renewed hope. Torres stood beside her, breathing hard but exhilarated. Weapons were lowered, shields deactivated, and a hush fell over the gathered troops. Under the sallow moonlight, Vallis clasped Torres's arm. "You have saved us tonight," he said. Torres gave a humble nod. "We saved each other," she replied. The medics moved among the wounded, humans treating Zalrith burns, Zalrith healers restoring human blood with healing chants. The lines between species blurred in acts of compassion. Tel and Scylla shared water from a single canteen. Lila and a young Zalrith scout laughed as they patched makeshift bandages on each other. In that quiet aftermath, the alliance proved stronger than fear. As dawn approached, Torres gazed eastward at the rising twin suns of Zalrith. Their light painted the battlefield gold, turning dust into glitter. She knew the war was far from over. The insectoid swarm would not relent. But tonight, two worlds had stood together and learned to trust. Hope, once dim and fragile, now burned bright. Torres whispered a promise to the wind: "We will finish this fight together." And across the battered plains, that vow echoed in the hearts of every soldier, human and Zalrith alike bold, unbroken, and shining like a new dawn. Under the pale morning sky, the training grounds lay quiet, except for the soft clang of metal on metal. Human instructors and Zalrith warriors gathered near a ring of glowing crystal markers. Commander Torres stood at the center, her voice calm and firm. "Form up in squads of 5, she ordered. Zalrith soldiers, still stiff from their first battle, hesitated only a moment before grouping around humans. The strange sight of mixed teams, each pairing a human-empowered armor with an alien in gleaming cerulean plates, felt like a promise of unity. Lieutenant Lila Huang demonstrated basic skirmish drills. She moved with easy grace, lowering her plasma carbine, sidestepping, then spinning to point beside her. Zalrith warriors copied her motions clumsily at first, their long limbs awkward. When Lila sprinted forward and vaulted over a low barrier, the warriors tried in turn, stumbling into the sand. Laughter rippled through the ranks, breaking tension. One warrior, young Aaron, grinned as he righted himself, and Lila gave him an encouraging nod. Small victories like these warmed hearts more than any weapon could. Meanwhile, engineer Ravi Patel worked with the city's master weaponsmith Valker. Valker's many-jointed hand-shaped glowing energy cores, while Patel adjusted human targeting circuits. Sparks flew where alien crystal met human chip. Valker clicked his mandibles in curiosity. "Your designs are precise," he said through Patel's translator. Patel smiled. "We learned from many wars," he replied. They fitted a human scope to a Zalrith energy rifle, creating a hybrid weapon. Warriors tested the new rifles, their shots striking distant targets with surprising accuracy. Pride shone in their four-eyed gazes. High Priestess Malara watched from a raised platform, her antennae quivering in thought. She spoke softly to her younger acolyte. "Their methods are strange," she said, "but their spirit is strong." The acolyte nodded, translating for a group of mage engineers nearby. They adjusted the energy amplifiers that would channel Zalrith elemental magic through human shields. When they activated the device, a soft blue halo surrounded the shield generator. A human soldier walked through the barrier unscathed as small sparks danced harmlessly on the shield's surface. Both species exchanged amazed glances. By midday, drills shifted to strategy sessions in the Hall of Council. Holomaps floated above a stone table, showing the insectoid swarm's advance routes. Torres and Vallis pointed at choke points, discussing ambush tactics. Zalrith mages contributed by sketching rune patterns that could slow enemy movement. Soldiers peered at the glowing map, nodding when they understood. A human tactician explained how to use portable mines in hidden trenches, while a Zalrith scout advised on local terrain where quicksand pits lay beneath the grass in which rock formations made good lookout posts. Each idea built on another, weaving two cultures into one plan. In the late afternoon sun, squads took to mock combat. Human instructors wore simple armor and carried blunted rifles. Zalrith warriors practiced their new maneuvers: flanking, retreat, and rapid advance. Torres watched as a squad led by Aaron and Lieutenant Wang executed a textbook ambush. Humans laid suppressed fire while Zalrith slipped behind the simulated enemy. The enemy collapsed in organized defeat. Cheers rang out as the squad paraded back, weapons raised. Torres allowed herself a small smile. The sight of two species moving together with confidence filled her with hope. That evening, under lanterns carved from glowing crystals, humans and Zalrith shared a communal meal. Flatbread and spiced stew passed between them, each trying the other's food with polite curiosity. Lila laughed as she attempted Zalrith etiquette, bowing too deeply and nearly toppling her bowl. A warrior gently steadied her and offered a supportive smile. Stockton, the ship's medic, walked from group to group, offering water to sweat-drenched soldiers and tending minor scrapes. He found comfort in seeing humans and aliens laugh side by side, their differences melting away in shared stories. As night fell, Torres and Malera met on the balcony of the council hall. Below them, the training grounds lay still, but the air felt charged. Malera's voice was soft. "Your people have given us more than tactics," she said. "They have given us hope." Torres placed a hand on the smooth stone railing. "Hope is what brought us here," she replied. Before dawn's first light, human and Zalrith forces moved in silent columns toward the narrow canyon known as the Black Gorge. Captain Vallis led the Zalrith vanguard, his armor stained with dust from training battles. "Behind him, Commander." Torres walked alongside Lieutenant Leela Huang and Engineer Ravi Patel. Each soldier carried extra ammo and field rations. Hearts pounded in quiet anticipation. Fear flickered in their chests like a candle in wind, but they steadied themselves. With shared purpose, to strike a decisive blow against the swarm, the supply convoy appeared just after sunrise. Dozens of bioluminescent insectoid transports crawled through the gorge, their carapaces glowing sickly green. Each transport bristled with armored plates and carried crates of fuel and weapons for the approaching horde. As the convoy passed, Zalrith scouts signaled the ambush point. Warriors crouched behind jagged rocks, their spears tipped with explosive crystals. Humans took position on the high ridge, plasma rifles trained on the passing transports. Silence fell, broken only by the convoy's heavy hum. Vallis gave a low whistle. At his signal, elemental mages released their hold on the explosive crystals. The rocks around the gorge floor trembled, and with a thunderous crack, a hidden minefield detonated under the convoy's rear transports. Flames and debris soared into the air. Sectoid shrieks echoed through the canyon as the horde's rearguard scrambled in confusion. Torres barked, "Open fire!" Plasma bolts and energy arrows streaked across the chasm, striking transport holes with precision. Soldiers on both sides cheered as the first transports ignited, a massive insectoid warbeast. Armored like a living tank, lumbered from the convoys. "Center," it roared, molten green fluid dripping from its mandibles. The beast charged the ridge, seeking to crush the human sharpshooters. Lila stood her ground and fired an overcharged shot at its chest joint. The projectile sparked on impact, but failed to crack the armor. The warbeast stumped forward, each step cracking stone. Torres sprinted toward the beast with Thompson grenades in hand, which lobbed one at its leg joint. The grenade erupted, ripping open a seam of plating and jarring the creature to a halt. Zalrith archers circled the warbeast and loosened volleys of energy bolts, distracting it from the humans above. Patel and Valkyr, the Zalrith weaponsmith, rushed forward with a jury-rigged energy harpoon. Patel steadied the launcher, while Valkyr aimed. The harpoon flew true, embedding itself in the beast's thorax. The creature staggered, its roar turning into a pained hiss. Soldiers pressed their attack. And with a final coordinated strike of plasma lance from Valis and a suppressive barrage from Torres, the warbeast collapsed in a shower of sparks and ash behind the fallen behemoth. The remaining transports panicked. Insectoid drones poured from their holes like spilled insects escaping a crushed hive. Zalrith warriors sprang into action, their energy spears slicing through ranks of fleeing drones. Humans moved down from the ridge, rifles barking as they flanked both sides of the gorge. Patel and a team of medics dashed forward to tend the wounded Zalrith. Their gentle care, a sharp contrast to the carnage around them. Scylla, the archer who saved Patel days before, knelt beside an injured drone handler and offered water. Compassion spread even amid violence. On the high ridge, Torres watched as the last transport blistered and exploded. The horde supply line lay in ruins. She lowered her weapon, breath heaving, and looked around at the warriors below. Dust motes danced in the golden light, and for a moment the world felt peaceful. Valis approached, his armor singed but his posture proud. Clasped Torres's arm in a gesture of respect. "You called this a trial," he said, voice quiet. "We have proven ourselves." Torres gave a tired smile. "Tonight, we showed them our strength and our heart." As the sun climbed higher, humans and Zalrith gathered among the smoldering wreckage. Engineers began salvaging usable technology. From the broken transports, while mages collected leftover crystals for study, across the ravaged gorge, soldiers shared tales of bravery. A young Zalrith recruit named Aerie recounted how she had shielded a human comrade from a falling rock, earning cheers from both sides. Patel laughed as he told Scylla about the time he accidentally overloaded a mine and buried himself in sand only to emerge laughing. Each story wove them closer together. By afternoon's light, the Allied force returned to the city gates as heroes. Citizens lined the streets, cheering and showering them with petals of glowing flora. Malara stood at the gate, her mandibles quivering with emotion. She embraced Torres in a formal Zalrith greeting, then turned to the crowd. With booming clarity, she declared, "Today, we turn the tide." Tears shimmered in Zalrith's eyes and in human helmets alike. In that moment, victory tasted sweet and hope burned brighter than ever. The trial skirmish had not only struck the enemy, but had also bound to peoples an unbreakable friendship. Asterisk under a sky streaked. With burning embers from distant battle flares, the Allied camp glowed with lanterns fashioned from Zalrith crystal. Soldiers clustered around low fires on the dusty plain, their faces half-lit and hopeful. Human medics moved between them, tending wounds with careful hands. Zalrith healers knelt beside each human patient, chanting soft refrains that eased pain. The two peoples worked together in a seamless dance of compassion. Every touch and whispered word wove invisible threads of trust between them. In that gentle light, old fears melted away. On one camp edge, Engineer Ravi Patel sat beside a wounded Zalrith soldier named Scylla. His suit was stained with dust and blood, but his eyes shone with gratitude. Scylla's 4 eyes blinked in gentle rhythm as Patel cleaned and bandaged a long gash on her forearm. "Your kindness saved me," she said in broken English, voice soft. Patel smiled, patting her armored shoulder. "We save each other," he replied. Nearby, other pairs formed humans and Zalrith, sharing water, sharing stories. In every act of healing, their bond grew stronger. Commander Jana Torres and Captain Valis walked through the rows of tents, stopping at each fire. They offered quiet words of thanks to human and Zalrith soldiers alike. Torres knelt by a young human private nursing a bruise. She held his hand and said, "You fought bravely today." He looked up at her, chest rising with emotion, and nodded fiercely. Valis sat with an elderly Zalrith veteran, sharing a mug of warmed crystal tea. They clinked cups in solemn respect. Across the camp, laughter rose as jokes and memories passed between warriors of both worlds. At the heart of the camp, a large bonfire crackled. Zalrith youths gathered around it, their cerulean skin flickering in the flames. A human child, Myra Nguyen held a small carved stone shaped like a star. She stepped forward and placed it at the fire's edge. The youths watched in curiosity. "It's for luck," Mira explained simply, her dark hair framing determined eyes. One Zalrith girl touched the carving gently, then looked at Mira. With shy admiration, the two sat together, sharing a quiet meal of flatbread and stew. In their shared silence, friendship took root. Above the camp, the twin suns set in the same colors that had once signaled doom. Torres and Valis climbed a small ridge to watch the horizon. The air was cool, and their breath steamed beneath their helmets. They spoke of battles past and of the uncertain future. Valis placed a heavy hand on Torres's shoulder. "We have come far," he said. Torres nodded, gazing at the stars now visible between the sun's afterglow. "Together," she whispered. In that moment, two leaders so different in form and culture found common ground and hope near the medical tents. Stockton, the human medic, worked alongside Zalrith healer Ankar. They exchanged techniques as they prepared soothing poultices for aching muscles. Ankar's soft chants blended with Stockton's calm instructions, creating a healing harmony. A wounded Zalrith soldier named Airy reached out to hold Stockton's hand in thanks. Stockton squeezed gently, offering water and a warm smile. "Rest now. Tomorrow we fight again," he said. Airy's eyes glistened with tears not of pain, but of gratitude. Each moment of care deepened their shared resolve. As night deepened, a hush fell over the camp. Soldiers drifted to their tents, lulled by exhaustion and the promise of rest. Around the dying embers of the bonfire, small groups lingered. Torres and Malara found each other by the smoke's soft glow. Lara's antennas twitched as she spoke. With gentle reverence, "Your warriors teach us more than combat," she said, voice rich with feeling. "They teach us kindness." Torres placed her hand on Malara's forearm. "And you teach us courage," she answered. In the gentle ember light, two leaders shared a moment of true friendship. Before turning in for the night, Torres paused at a memorial of fallen Zalrith and humans. She knelt and touched a small crystal shard placed in the ground. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "We will honor them." Valis stepped close and bowed his head in solemn agreement. All around, campfires burned low, casting quiet light on faces filled with determination. In their hearts, humans and Zalrith carried the memory of sacrifice and the promise of a new beginning. Bonds forged in fire would guide them through the darkness to come. The sky above Zalrith's last fortress world turned red with warning. Far in the distance, black clouds moved not of storm, but of war. The insectoid armada had arrived. A massive swarm of war beasts and transport ships covered the horizon, their glow filling the air with dread. In the heart of the ancient fortress, humans and Zalrith stood ready, shoulder to shoulder. No fear in their eyes, only determination. Commander Jana Torres stood atop the command tower. Her helmet off, hair tied back, eyes scanning the approaching swarm. Around her, humans checked weapons and loaded final supplies. Zalrith warriors lit their crystal staffs, forming lines along the high walls. The air vibrated with tension. It was more than a battle now. It was the moment where everything they had built, every friendship, every lesson, every shared wound would be tested. Captain Valis joined her, his armor now repaired and marked. With both Earth's blue star and the Zalrith sun symbol, "They come with all their strength," he said in a deep, steady voice. Torres nodded. "So do we." Below them, soldiers moved into place. Lila Huang stood with Aaron and a squad of mixed fighters near the canyon pass. Ravi Patel and Valkyr manned the shield generator platform, connecting cables, adjusting knobs, and whispering silent prayers that it would hold. The plan was simple, but bold. Humans had placed explosive traps around the fortress in narrow paths where the enemy would pass. Zalrith mages had poured energy into defense crystals. When the swarm entered the trap zone, the humans would trigger the mines, and the Zalrith would channel power through the amplifiers, creating a wall of flame and force. It was risky, but it was their best chance. As the enemy drew closer, silence fell. Even the wind stopped. Then the first wave hit. Thousands of drones flew forward, their wings sharp like knives. Human turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the sky. Zalrith archers stood in perfect rows, launching glowing arrows that exploded in midair. The front of the swarm burst into flames. Screeches echoed as burning wings fell from the sky. Then the ground shook. Massive war beasts charged, pushing through the fire, eyes glowing with rage. One smashed into the outer gate. The stone cracked. Another struck the shield barrier. Sparks flew. Torres shouted, "Now!" And Ravi hit the control panel. A wave of heat and light erupted from the fortress walls. Fire burst from the crystal. Mines trapping the front lines of the enemy. Zalrith amplifiers roared to life, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The swarm screamed in pain as dozens of their ships fell, wings folding in fiery spirals, but the enemy kept coming. On the eastern ridge, Aaron was pinned behind a rock. A drone had cut his leg, and he could barely move. Lila rushed to him, shooting. 2 drones midair before dropping beside him. "Not dying today," she said, pulling him onto her back. Aaron's arms wrapped around her shoulders, and together they limped back behind the next barricade. Never stopping, never giving. Up. In the western tower, Sela and Patel worked side by side, rerouting failing power cables. A drone broke through a wall and charged them. Sela stood in front of Patel and fired her last energy bolt. It hit the creature in the eye, saving them both. Patel looked at her, heart racing. "You didn't have to," she stopped him with a small smile. "I wanted to." The fortress shook again. The main gate cracked open. A massive queen insectoid stepped forward, surrounded by guards. Her presence darkened the air itself. Torres stood at the top of the stairs, rifle raised. "All units, focus fire," she called. A hail of bullets and bolts poured toward the queen. Still, she advanced. Then, without warning, Malara appeared behind Torres, robes glowing with ancient energy. She raised her staff high. The runes on the fortress walls flared to life, enormous. Beam of light shot from the sky and struck the queen, paralyzing her. Torres and Valis rushed forward. With a final blast of energy and one synchronized strike, the queen screamed and fell. The battlefield fell silent. Drones stopped midair. The swarm began to retreat, confused and leaderless. Cries of victory rose from the fortress. Soldiers fell to their knees in relief. Torres, breathing hard, looked at Valis. "It's over," she whispered. He nodded, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "Because of you. Because of us." As night fell, the stars shone brighter than they ever had. Fires burned low. Soldiers hugged, laughed, cried. Lila rested near Aaron, who now had a bandage on his leg and a smile on his face. Tal sat with Scylla, their shoulders touching. Malara and Torres stood beside each other, watching the sky. A sky now free, their final stand had not only protected a world but proved that 2 very different peoples could fight as one and win. Asterisk, the twin sons of Zalrith rose slowly above the battlefield, casting golden light over the broken ground. Smoke still curled from the ruins of the enemy, and shattered pieces of the insectoid swarm lay scattered like fallen leaves. But in the heart of the ancient fortress, there was peace real, peace for the first time in many years. The long night of fear was finally over. Commander Jana Torres stood on the highest platform of the city wall, her uniform dusty and torn, but her heart full. She looked out across the land where both human and Zalrith banners flew side by side. The sun lit up the faces of warriors who had once known only pain, only war. Now they smiled. They laughed. They rested in each other's arms, not as strangers, but as friends, brothers, and sisters of the same cause. Captain Valis joined her, his armor marked with deep cracks and burn scars. Yet his voice was calm. "You're rebuilding already," he said softly. "Streets are being cleared. Schools will open again soon." Torres nodded, her eyes glistening. "Why we did it, Valis. all of us together. In the city square, soldiers and civilians gathered for the final ceremony. Zalrith children ran past with playful laughter, waving small flags of Earth, and Zalrith joined together. Mira Nguyen, the young human girl who had once gifted a lucky stone, sat beside her. New alien friend, drawing pictures in the dirt? Around them, people smiled and whispered stories of bravery. Malara stood on a raised stage carved from ancient stone. Her robe flowed gently in the wind, and the crystals on her staff glowed softly. She lifted her hands, and silence fell over the crowd. Today, she began, we honor not only those who fell in battle, but those who stood with us when we had no one left. The humans called by our beacon have shown us the true meaning of courage and unity. We called for warriors, but what we received were heroes. Torres was invited to the stage. She walked slowly, her head held high, but her steps heavy with emotion. Standing beside Malara, she spoke into the translator. We came because we heard a cry for help, but we stayed because we found something greater, family, a future. And today, I speak not just for Earth, but for every human who fought and loved and lost here. She paused, looking out at the faces before her, some scarred, some tired, all proud. You are no longer alone. We will build this future together. A great cheer rose. Hands clawed and human reached into the air. The sound echoed across the land. After the ceremony, Ravi Patel and Valkyr opened the new fusion facility, a joint project between human engineers and Zalrith crystal scientists. The energy they would create together would power homes, hospitals, and schools. It's more than just power, Patel said with a grin. It's a symbol, a start. Lila Huang, now close friends with Aaron, organized training for a new generation of peacekeepers teams made of both species. We're not teaching war anymore, she told the group. We're teaching how to protect peace. Aaron nodded beside her, still limping slightly, but walking tall. Scylla and Patel walked through a newly planted garden. It's filled with blue-leafed plants native to Zalrith, and earth flowers growing side by side. You saved me, Patel said softly. Scylla touched his hand. You made me believe again. There were no more barriers, now only bonds. That evening, the stars returned to the sky, and lanterns were lit all over the city. Music played soft tones from Zalrith flutes mixed with human strings. Dances began. Young and old, human and alien, swayed in rhythm. The lines between worlds had faded. They'd become one. Later that night, Torres stood alone in the quiet of the command tower. She looked up at the stars, the same stars that had once seemed so far away. She thought of Earth, of her home, but her heart no longer felt divided. This planet, these people, were now a part of her too. Valis joined her. Again, you could return to Earth now, he said. She smiled. Maybe one day, she answered, but not yet. There's still work to do. Together, they looked toward the horizon where a new city would rise. A city of two species, of two stories written as one. The battle had been won. The fear had passed. And from the ashes, a new alliance was born, stronger than war, brighter than weapons. It had begun with a cry for help. It ended with a promise for peace. And somewhere in between, humans had reminded the stars what hope truly meant.